Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Nigel here with you. This is part 3 now of the bulkhead removal fiasco. Well, it's not a fiasco, is it? I absolutely love it. I really enjoy fabrication. So even if I'm not very good at it. But anyway, as you know from part 2, we've got it all cut out and everything roughed out. And then today I've come along and drilled out, as you can see out over here, drilled out the spot welds, drilled out the pot rivets, and then cut off the flanges. As you can see, I used a disc cutter for that. Very noisy, but had to be done. Sorry neighbours. So yeah, very noisy, had to be done. And now what I've got to do is go around and sand all the edges nice and flush and get them all nice and even. So that's quite a chore. And it's now that you'll see why I've used the 1/8 pot rivets rather than going straight in with the 5mm pot rivets, because I'm using them almost as a guide to let the grinder touch them, and I'm not touching the parent metal then. So I'm going to show you how I do it. I've actually done this side behind me, so I'm going to show you what I've done, and then I'll show you how I do it, where we do some speeded up stuff with some grinding and stuff. So let's have a look at what I've already done, and then we'll do some. This is how I do it. I don't call it tutorials because I'm not telling you how to do anything. My way is not necessarily the best way. It's certainly not the only way. But it's the way I do things, and it's the way I think it would come out best for me with the tools I've got, and these hands, and this mind, and everything else. Okay, so there we go. You can see, if we look at it on different angles, you can see it's all ground away, nice and flush. We've got this gap in here because if you think about it, before it was rolled over this way, and then this front sheet was flat. So obviously you've got a radius on there, so that is actually there. Pick this knife up if I can. Actually here, that corner there where I'm pointing to, that's actually a sharp edge because it comes along and then it's rolled up. So I've sort of ground away half of the radius, if you like. But I've got it all nice and flush, and then my intention is to wire brush this out. This is bits of sealant that have come through. Wire brush this out and then pump sealant in there. Give it a wipe off, and then when it's dry, get a very sharp knife and just trim it off, and we should end up with a lovely flush joint that will take the paint and won't crack. So there we go. And you can see I've done the same down here. So I'll go through now how I do it. As I say, it's not necessarily the best way to do it, but it's the way I do it. And you can see that this is what we start with over here, where I've got it cut off. You can see it's quite rough. It's cut off with a disc, but we've got a little bit left on here to take off. So let me get my wheel set up and we'll go from there. Alright, so I've got the camera now mounted actually in the tub, because otherwise if I have it behind me you won't be able to see what I'm doing. So the camera is on the tub, so if it vibrates and moves around or anything, that's because it's actually on the tub. I'm sorry. So what I'm using for this is an ordinary grinder with a flat wheel in it. I think it's an 80 grit. And the reason I use these rather than a grinding wheel is they're much more forgiving, and they kind of give you a softer edge, if you like. They don't just gouge in. Now we've only got about 1 millimetre come off there and about 2 or 3 millimetres here, so you've got to be a little bit careful. So what I'll probably do now is grind this. I'll probably speed the film up, put some music on it or whatever, and then I'll come back when I show you the little technique I used for doing the last little bit. you can see there, we're getting some sparks from the rivets, and that's how I know when I've gone far enough. So I've got like next to nothing now to come off. I'm just going to take a little bit more off. Okay, so I'm going to use a file. I'm going to peel up this burr that's on the back. Get that out of the way. Just pull that up and out of the way like so. That's the lovely thing about working aluminium. You don't really cut yourself, and there's no sparks, and it's nice. What I'm going to do now is get a couple of layers of masking tape. So piece of masking tape tight into the edge, like so. Okay, and then second piece on top. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is grind with this tape grinder, keeping it level, but as soon as I see it touch the tape, then I know that I'm just sort of a few thou away from the actual paintwork. Okay, so there we can see, if I zoom in, I don't know if well, it's going to zoom in, but we can see that it's touched the edge of the tape, sort of just peeled it up. So now I know, when I take the tape off, it's practically flush. Okay, that over there is just glue, which is deposit. I tipped the wheel over a little much and it touched it, so you can see it's not too good. So what I do now is come along with a file and just gently file that until it's flat. So I'll do that and then I'll come back, because you don't want to sit there watching with the camera wobbling about. Okay, so it's the next day now, and look, we can see a reflection there, reflection of the Mustang. And it's all done. As you can hear, you've got typical July weather. Looking really, really nice out here, as you can see. Really beautiful. Lovely, lovely weather for July over here in England. So anyway, there we go. Give you a close-up. We've got all the edges all done, as you can see, and as I said, we've got that gap in there because of the radius on the turn up on that part. That's okay. It's good to have a gap actually, because it means we can get a good dollop of seam sealer in there, and it'll give it a bit of body. If it was just a tiny thin cylinder, you may find it start splitting, but with a good thick body in there, it'll stay without splitting. Radius on the corners here, and then we've got the same down in here, we've got the same gap down here, so we're going to fill that with seam sealer. Across the bottom, I've basically ground all that nice and smooth using the same masking tape method. Now it's all sanded, and unfortunately, as you can see by the paw prints, I've had an assistant helping me with wet paws, so now I've got to let it all dry out because she stood on this edge. I've got to let it all dry out and then give it a coating of etch primer, and then we can start looking at finishing it then. And what I should probably do is get it all primed and finished and looking lovely, and then the last thing I'll do is drill out these pop rivets, put in the proper 5mm, the 4.8 ones, and then get a coat of paint on it. On the sides here, I managed to actually, whoops, basically that tripod fell apart in the end. Yeah, on the sides here, I managed to cut this out with a modelling tool. This is it's called a razor saw. Okay, so I'm just able to just get in there without the handle on, and just literally saw through until it's almost all the way through, and just snap it off. And it gets a nice neat job, as you can see on the top of that flange then. So as I say, we'll put some seam sealer over all of this, seal it all in. I've also cut all the seam sealer out down here because it was a right dog's dinner, and I want to make sure it's sealed properly because, as you know, I had the leak in before, and we know, as I showed you before, we have a hole down here that was never filled. So getting you in close, you can see it there. There you go, you can see the gap, see the semicircle with the gap above it. So here we are, over quality. But this I'm really pleased how this has come out. That's nice and smooth. I wanted it nice so just don't catch her paws on it or anything, because no doubt when we're out in it, because she loves this vehicle, she loves the Land Rover, she will be jumping in the back, because she always used to like to jump over the bulkhead. She used to give me a fright, because if she jumped over as I was accelerating, she would slide straight into the back of the truck when she landed. So yeah, it's not good for them jumping forward either, so I'd like to have her back here now and get her tied in. So, not tied in, but you know, on a restraint. So there we go. Next thing we've got to do is start drilling around here. We've got to drill that rivet out there. We've got to open this hole up to 10.5mm, and then take the bracket from that side, bolt it to this side, and then we can drill the other two holes here and here, I believe, or is it here and here? I can't remember if it's there and there or there and there, but it's a pattern of 3 holes anyway. And then we can get that bolted in, and also we'll have to drill through here because it comes down, it's like a tube, it comes down and it goes onto a plate here. We've got to drill through there, and then we'll have to flip it over again, remove all that sealant and everything, and put the backing plate in there properly. And I'll probably bond it in, and then that'll be that then. Although if I do bond it in, it may not be able to. No, it's a nut plate, it's okay, it's a nut plate, it's not a stud plate. So yeah, I'll just bond that in, and then we're done then. And then we can take it all out, get all the finishing done, get all the painting done, and it will be job done. Lots of dones in there. Okay, so here we're looking at the bars I'm talking about, and these go in the sides, and then the main actual hoop itself is going to come off of this bracket here, and that's going to come out and along and down to the floor, and we'll see that as time goes on. So basically we've got these brackets here to go on, and what we need to do is drill the holes in the capping for these 3 bolt holes, and you can see them there, 1 on the left and then 2 on the right. So what you need to do is take the one from the opposite side. You could do with some paint down in there, couldn't it, as well? Look at that. Not very good, is it? Anyway, so basically this one, as you can see, this one is for the left side here, so it's going to go in like, let's get the camera back, it's going to go in like that sort of thing. You can see there's a plate down the bottom on the wheel arch, and then it's going to bolt up underneath there. And we should have one of the holes lining up. There we go, with the hole I've just drilled, that's 10.5mm. So what we've got to do is get the one from the opposite side. So if we take this one to the other side, what we've got to do is put this on upside down, oops, like so. Okay, line that hole up with that 10.5mm hole. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to bolt it from underneath, and then we can mark out and drill the other 2 holes here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to drill an M10 bolt, and then put a bolt in there and then drill through the centre of the M10 bolt with a pilot hole, and that'll give me my positions perfectly. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I have seen, and I'm going to mention no names, I have seen it done where people don't want to take the sides off, and they've just gone straight down through the top. and they've actually bolted into this bracket through the side. Well, the side piece is just a piece of aluminium which is sat on a piece of foam, and so they're basically bolting that in through a piece of foam. So if you're paying someone to do this work for you, and that's what they've done, I suggest you ask them to look at it again, because the whole idea of this is to have this bracket bolted solidly to the tub, to this steel capping, and then the bar is going to go solidly across the other side, so it's actually tying everything back in solid. So in the event of a side impact, I know the Land Rover isn't the best protection in the world because it's all aluminium, but at least with that bar there, it's going to give you some protection. And if it's only bolted through that aluminium, it's just going to rip straight through here. So this will just rip through. So I don't know, I like to do things properly and how they suggest. And they've given us three welded on nuts, as you can see. Okay, 1, 2, 3, with 3 M10 bolts, and then 3 M10 bolts at the bottom into the aluminium plate, through the aluminium plate into a steel bracket on the back. I'm going to fit it as they want, and then I know I've got no worries with insurance or anything. So let's get this done, and then I'll come back and show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so there you can see the setup. We've got this one would go in here. Okay, this one would fit in here with the flange on the bottom, and that's the opposite side. So basically we can now take that one, and I've got it bolted up from underneath. You can see here through that previous hole I drilled. Squared this up on here, and then clamped it down, and then here I've got a short M10 bolt, and I've drilled a 5mm hole down through it on the lathe. So now when I drill down through there with a 5mm drill, I know I get the hole centered, and I can take the bolt out of there, drill that, and I've got 2 5mm pilot holes to work with then, and then I can carry on and drill them out to 10.5mm. And hopefully the drills won't wander and everything will fit together perfectly. So let's give it a go. Okay, so we've got a 5mm drill, a little bit of cutting fluid on the end just to help it. So we can just go down through there now, drill down through. Oh, I wonder what the noise was. It's the chuck rubbing on the side of there. One thing I hate about this bloody Hitachi drill, really don't buy one. The chuck keeps coming undone itself. It's a pain in the bloody ass. That's what was wrong. The truck was rubbing on the side of there. It's still rubbing on there now. So things always go wrong when the camera's on. I should not make videos and then everything would go perfectly well for me. It's still rubbing. It's because I'm through, that's why. Duh. So... And also notice while I'm drilling, you keep pulling the drill up out so that you can get this, give the swarf a chance to clear. And also clean the threads out first because they're full of powder coat. So I have to touch it up, and I've got some chips and scratches on it to touch up anyway. So if it wasn't powder coated, I'd strip it. And also on mine, these welds are quite nice. If you get a chance to have a look, if you're buying one of these Britpart kits, have a look at the quality of the welds, because some of them I've seen, the welds are like pigeon shit, terrible. But, I went to M&M 4x4 up in Worcester to get this one, saw the lovely Sophie, and don't forget guys, if you go on M&M 4x4's website, you get a 5% discount, and Sophie was absolutely wonderful. These are currently on back order, these kits, but she knew I wanted one, so she let me have the one off display. So if you're watching this, thank you very much, Sophie, and thank you very much, Richard, for your time chatting when I came up to see you. So right, let's get this other one drilled out. Let's put a bit of cutting oil on there first. Right. Blimey, that went through easy. Obviously this side's got more material under it or something. But there we go. So now I've got 2 perfectly positioned 5mm pilot holes to work from. There we go, that's those holes drilled. Progressively drilled them out with they were 5 to start with, I went 7, then 9, then 10.5. And then I've gone in with a cutter and deburred them so you can see you've got a nice smooth edge on them now. And getting from the back as well. It's always just good practice to deburr your holes. You're not raggedy edges everywhere, especially if it's a stressed area, because it's less likely to split and crack then, and also it means you can get a nice coat of paint on there rather than having edges of bare metal where the paint won't get under. So first, I haven't tried this honestly. You can see, in fact, I need to run a bolt down these threads because they, as I say, they have powder coat in them, or paint, whatever it is. I think it's powder coat. So I'm just going to, basically what I'm doing here is just running a bolt down through the thread just to clean it out. I would put a tap down there, but you know, it's sometimes good to have a little bit of something in there to give it a bit of a thread locking ability. And also, if it's got powder coat in there, it will, although most of it will be removed with the bolt, what's left in there may help. I don't know, stop corrosion. I'm just talking rubbish again. I'm just trying to fill the video out or not have to turn the camera off, and while I'm doing this, give me another point, another editing point. So all I'm doing here is just winding this bolt down these threads. And pleased to know the weather's stopped. I've had an offer of a visit to the pub this evening by my mate Dave, who's up, said he'd buy all the beers. So that's pretty cool. So not going if it's pouring down with rain though. Right then, so what I'm going to do is I've got some bolts here. I haven't got the hardware that comes with the kit out with me, but all I want to do is just check for alignment, and then we'll get the other side done. But we can see now we can put a bolt in there. It's like it doesn't want to go over far enough. The aluminium's in the way, that's what it is. And I know that I'm right because this is the bolt hole that was already there. So yeah, you just push it in, and it's just pushing the aluminium. There's some of the aluminium's up behind the capping. So see, these are going in fine. And as you can see, everything's aligned, and we've got movement, so nothing's binding, nothing's tight at all, other than that one because it's up against the aluminium panel. Yeah, and then that's going to fit down there, and that's going to bolt up against that wheel arch, and it's not perfect. It's going to pull the aluminium out a bit because there's a bit of a gap at the back, at the bottom should I say, but it all comes off of this hole here, which is what you're stuck with. So what you may want to do, if you're fitting one of these, you may want to move that hole forward. But as you can see, it's all lining up lovely. Control the bolts by fingers, so that's a good way of getting everything lined up, is to get yourself a little bolt. If you've got a friend with a lathe, get them to stick it up in the lathe and drill a hole through the centre, and then you can use that for centre finding. So there we go. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I'll probably just let it pull it about, but when I do it up, it's gonna, I don't think you can see what I'm talking about, but what I'm talking about is down here, you can see this plate, and with it all fitted up nice and flush, you can see at the bottom there's a gap, so it's not at the same angle. In fact, there's a gap at the top as well, so it needs to be over there. There we go. So it's not at the same angle as the aluminium, but it's just going to we'll have to let it pull it about a bit, I think. So there's a good case to get that bolted up before we put the sealer in, and then we'll just pull the sealer about. But it'll find its own way. So there we go. So we'll call that a day for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. And basically, I just want to show you what this is. You can see that there, this bracket, we're going to have a tube coming off of there, down across here. It's going to bolt in through these seat bolt holes here, and then we'll have the same on the other side. So I can get the other side done now, and then I'll see you soon for part 4. This has been part 3. Thanks for watching. If you've liked what you've seen, please hit that subscribe and hit the like button. Bye for now.